Listen, we go from 1.5 miles Atlanta, which is absolutely super speedway drafting racing, out west to Las Vegas. High speed 1.5 miles, tons of bumps in 1 and 2 around the bottom and the middle. Gets a little smoother around the top. 3 and 4, a little bit lower grip because it sits in the sun. Great racetrack to see next-gen cars at. The racing out there has really, really been good. New right side tire, if my math is right, from Goodyear. Same left side tire. Professor's nodding. He was a little shocked that I knew that stat on a non-NBC weekend. I got my homework done, Professor. New right side tire. So that really goes into, let's talk about the ingredients. We're gonna put this Predictor up on a pedestal. You're gonna have to tell me why I'm getting soup du jour here. We've seen 2 super speedway races. We got a new Toyota body, a new Ford body that we haven't seen the downforce versions of. So what did you put in the mix to get the Predictor?
Well, I put in a lot of Las Vegas, a lot of 1.5 mile races. Atlanta doesn't count as a 1.5 mile race for us. And then we still go back to last year. We still pull in last year's results. And I think it still makes sense. You know, William Byron and Kyle Larson are at the top. They won both races there last year, swept both races last year. Hendrick's been really good at Las Vegas, winning 3 of the last 4 with 3 different drivers. And then Toyota's also been really strong at Las Vegas recently. So that's what makes up the rest of the top 10, I would say, in the Predictor.
So we got Tier 1, Tier 2. Tier 1 is 4 drivers: William Byron, Larson, Hamlin, Blaney. Pretty big gap from Byron to Blaney personally in the Predictor score. Tier 2, Bowman, Bell, Chastain, Reddick. Throw a blanket over the 4 of those looking at the scores. Reddick, Truex, Wallace, Busch. That's the end of Tier 2. So Tier 1 and 2 get us all the way to the top 11.
Hold on a second, though, Russ. At what point would you have separated Byron and Larson? What kind of gap would you have wanted to see?
I'm going to answer this for him. If we were the 10th downforce race of the year and you saw that same 7-point swing, we would have separated them. But the swings are a little coarse with the lack of new data.
Yeah, I just think that makes sense to split them where we split them there. So, like, the next group is so tight together. But I think, you have Blaney and Byron, a bigger gap than normal, but I think they're still interchangeable.
So moving on Tier 3, and I want to talk about this because Tier 3 starts at the 12th position, right? So we have a lot of Tier 2 drivers. Tier 3, 12th position. Brad K, Logano, bit surprised by Logano. Buescher, Gibbs, Dillon, Chase Elliott is a Tier 3. I mean, yeah. Kyle Busch barely snuck into Tier 2, but Chase Elliott's down at Tier 3, next to Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Tier 4, Suarez, Burton, Jones, Haley, Priest, Briscoe, and we'll get to the bottom couple tiers in a moment. I don't have a whole lot of questions at the top. Normally we spend a lot of time at the top, but I think Byron and Larson are great Tier 1 guys. Denny Hamlin was so fast at Miami a year ago before the steering broke and he smashed the fence. And Blaney ended the year so strong. I hate agreeing with the professor, but I have a hard time arguing that those shouldn't be the 4 premier guys.
But you're going to argue with me with my 5th place guy. I know that. So everybody's been on me about this, but Alex,
hold on. Listen, I have a whole lot of pissing and moaning I have for you in arguments and disagreements. Don't just jump right to the obvious one that you think we're going to start with just because you're loaded for the argument. Just because you get shit together doesn't mean, hey, we're going to start with this guy. No. There's a reason when I introduced everybody, I said, hey, I'm your host, and then you 3. I get to steer this, Professor. You don't get to just line me up for an argument.
All right.
Good Lord, Tim.
Come on, bring it on.
I like this Professor.
Oh, he's feisty. Kevin Harvick pokes him one time. Next thing I know, he's friggin' Floyd Mayweather over here. His fists are going left and right.
That's right.
Good Lord. I was going to give the floor to the gambler to see if he had any inquiries on the top 4 before you jumped right ahead.
Whatever the host wants.
Byron, Larson, Hamlin, Blaney, Tims. Are you on board, or are you going to defer your time from Tampa Tims over to the professor?
I mean, I'll be quick so he could take up some of my time, but I do like Hendrick. I do like Byron and Larson. I think the books have them the top 2 favorites for a reason. I mean, they're so good here, and I think they're off to a good start this year too, Hendrick and Chevy in general. So definitely like Hendrick. We'll be hammering at least 3 of their 4 drivers.
Okay, now I'm going to let you argue about Bowman. So let's stay on the Hendrick train for a minute.
I have a question though with Larson. Larson is plus 400. So how would you bet that versus some of the other ones? Because his odds are so low.
I would bet him. I'd put a couple units on him. Obviously after qualifying, so I don't think the lines will change that much, even if he's on the pole. And I would try to balance that out with all the others. It's kind of like Austin Hill last week. He's so good at super speedways. He's worth putting some money on, because if he doesn't win, a winning ticket's a winning ticket. I mean, it's plain and simple, and you're still doubling your money. With Larson, I mean, you're quadrupling your money. I think it's worth a couple unit bet right there. And then you hope maybe that you catch a long shot with Bowman or, Byron. But, that's how I'd bet it.
Well, so what I would say is, you said after qualifying, I would add that I think this is an important practice to watch. Normally, I would say we don't learn a lot in a short practice, but being the first downforce race, I would just to really jump on Tim's train there. I would like to see that Larson is as good as we think he should be. Like, if he comes out and he's the fastest thing there, it's going to go from 4 to 3.5. If it moves, it probably stays at 4. Like, I don't think it moves much at all. He's the heavy favorite. So prove to me that you deserve the 4-1 number, right? Mm-hmm. Prove to me the professor has dug into the data. We have some great ideas about what ran well at Vegas last time. Throw away the first couple laps. Look at laps like 4 to 10, 4 to 12 of a run, really translated to the race. So tune in over the weekend on social. We'll try to give you some updates on what practice looks like. Practice is on Saturday, right, Professor?
Correct.
On FS1?
Yes.
Saturday, FS1. You could tune in person. You can go to NASCAR.com. They have a good timing and scoring feed. You can watch the lap times yourself if you want to get hardcore with it. So there's a couple ways to digest the data. Now, Russell, you're locked and loaded. Please, the floor is yours. Let's talk Bowman. You have in the 5th position, and Chase Elliott barely holding on to tier 3. You're going to have to sell the fans on something.
Yeah, so you'd think they should be switched. So
No. Don't put words in my mouth. I didn't say that.
I said somebody else. I didn't say it was the general you, not you.
Oh.
So the Bowman's last win came at Las Vegas in the next gen car. He's finished top 3 in 2 of the last 3 races at Las Vegas. He was accident in the other one while I was running top 10. And Hendrick's been so good at Vegas and on this type of track. This is where my man Bowman's going to come back.
All right, if you ever wanted a stat-supported long shot, follow me on this now. This is a statistically supported long shot. It's Alex Bowman at 22-1. We talk a lot about the books. The books use different understanding, recent performance. He has not run great past his injury last year where he broke his back in a sprint car. He's definitely been down. So I am not against Bowman. I think what Professor says is great, but I will say this. Let's put a big asterisk. If he goes and runs 22nd at Las Vegas, my concern for Alex Bowman goes up dramatically. Like, this is the week he should, even if he doesn't win, he should be back to Bowman-esque.
Yeah, if he doesn't run well at Vegas, he's never going to be top 2 tier ever again for me. So
the judge has spoken. Well, then please, let's go to NASCAR's most popular driver, who you have barely in the tier 3. He's sandwiched. Let me just go ahead and say he's sandwiched between Austin Dillon and Ricky Stenhouse.
You said that
Two
like
Daytona 500 winners, but I want to say 6 or 7 wins between the two of them. You're going to have to give me something on my man Chase.
So his average finish at Vegas is 19th, which is his lowest on all mile-and-a-half tracks and his second lowest to Daytona. So and he only has 3 top 10s in his 13 starts on mile-and-a-half tracks in the next-gen car. He's never had a top 5 in the next-gen car.
Go ahead and
mile-and-a-half track.
File that away.
That's big.
The wait is almost over, North Carolina. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, is coming to your state. On March 11th, you'll finally be able to bet on all your favorite sports teams and all your favorite sports. With FanDuel, there's tons of ways for you to get in on the action. You can bet on everything from the money line to the over-unders to which team will win this year's Tobacco Road rivalry. All on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Plus, with live betting, you can even pick which player will put up the next bucket and the one after that. See for yourself why FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. Just go to FanDuel.com/Dough, DOUGH, so you can be the first to know when FanDuel goes live in North Carolina. That's FanDuel.com/dough. Make every moment more with FanDuel. 21 and over and present in North Carolina. Gambling problem? Call 877-718-5543 or visit morethanagame.nc.gov. Availability subject to regulatory approval.
Let me ask you then. I'm going to skip ahead to a bet that we haven't seen these bets before, but a book is offering these. Chase Elliott, finishing position, over under 11.5. You can get plus 100 if you think he's finishing outside.
I'm thankful
11.
you put these bets on here. I've never seen these either. First of
This
all,
is the first.
Yeah,
and
I've seen this.
And then look, when you find a bet that I haven't seen, I feel like you've come up with some new stuff. That's a great line.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. I mean, that is. I'm gonna have to tip of the hat to the book that came up with that. I think that's an amazing line. Professor, would you take over or under?
Whew. I'm staying away from this one.
Yeah, I need to see how he practices and qualifies. If he's up there, I could see him finishing top 10, but I gotta see him. I gotta see what speed's in that car because he hasn't run well. Even last year, he didn't run well. So I need to see how the car's doing.
So let's just go through these because I think this is a great conversation. Let's start at the top. Bubba Wallace, over under 14.5. We're calling them even money. They're both minus 115, so there's no juice either way. I seem to like the under. If he finishes, he's going to be inside the top 14, in my opinion. Professor, the stats say
On Bubba?
Yeah.
For sure. I like Bubba this week.
Blaney, over under 9.5. The under's minus 140. I think that's where you should bet. There's a lot of ways to run outside the top 9. That's an avoid for me, just because of the juice. But if they wanted my action, I would have preferred a Blaney over under 8.5 at even money. I'd have given up one more spot to not pay the 40 cents worth of juice, but either way.
Yeah, and Blaney's not really a mile and a half guy when you look at the numbers.
He's either going to run like top 3 or 18th.
Yeah, it's I kind of stay away from him this week in general.
Reddick. This is awful to say. Do I dare say it?
Say it.
I like the Reddick over, plus money. Not
Why?
because of his talent, not because of his speed. It's just, man, this car is just reasonably inconsistent. Is that fair, Russ? Or am I making up his inconsistency? Is that in my head?
I think on a mile and a half track, you got to stick with him. I think when we get off the mile and a half track of these other tracks, he's inconsistent. But I really like he's been top 10 in 4 of the last 5 at Las Vegas.
So you avoid Chase Elliott. You're avoiding Chris Buescher. You have Bubba Wallace as your sleeper. Give me some Bubba Wallace stuff. We blew through Bubba Wallace. He's a popular driver. You have him in the Predictor at 10th, which is right on kind of those value lines.
Yeah.
Find Wallace.
So he finished 5th in both races this year already, like avoided the chaos. He's finished 5th in this or 4th in this race last year. He's been 6 top 10s in the last 10 mile and a half races. He won at Kansas in on a mile and a half track. What else do you want?
I love that. I can't believe you didn't bring up Martin Truex's streak when we were talking about him. Is that because his number's at 7.5? If it was at 9.5, you'd have brought it up?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah, because he's been, and you want to see last in the next gen races at Vegas, he's been 8th, 7th, 7th, 9th. That's why it's 7.5.